Hello, I am your teacher, Mr. Pichiti, and this is my classroom right here in North Carolina State University. So put away your mobile phones, put away your crazy bones, buy my t-shirt. It's time to concentrate. It's time to study. This is Smackdown Live, and this is Graded. We kick things off with Samoa Joe, who immediately pulls out a ladder from under the ring, places it in the center of the ring, and demonstrates how to climb a ladder using both his right and left legs in alternate motions to ascend up the ladder, similar to walking, but upwards. Seriously though, Joe delivers a hell of a promo here. He says that he's going to do things to Daniel Bryan which are far worse than forced retirement. He brings up Brie, he brings up Birdie, Daniel and Brie's daughter, Birdie, saying that after Money in the Bank, Daniel's going to be home, but he's not going to be the same man. He's going to be drenched in failure. It was, seriously intense stuff, personal stuff, kicking SmackDown off on a seriously great note. Out comes Daniel Bryan, says, you've crossed a line there, and if you continue, Joe, I'm going to break your leg. Just brilliant. Just a really great way to kick things off. And then out comes Big Cass. Cass, on an equally personal note, sort of calls them the shrimp and the blimp. A great line. You've got a feel for Cass, who has had this stuff written for him. I'm not saying that his delivery's great either. Sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not, but it's not a great line, especially after something so personal and so intense. But anyway, Cass says that, and he says, hey, we're not going to get Daniel Bryan versus Samoa Joe tonight, which was the advertised match. We're going to get Big Cass versus Samoa Joe because he's spoken to SmackDown Live general manager Paige Backstage, and she's made that match. But when will that happen? When Big Cass is ready to compete. And when is Big Cass ready to compete? Right now. And he lays out Joe, he lays out Bryan with a briefcase. It was good stuff. So with Cass standing tall in the center of the ring, holding the briefcase up, I'm going to give this one a B+. Before Cass came out, this felt especially big. Regardless of my thoughts of Cass as a performer, if there's one way to get the guy heat, interrupt Daniel Bryan, interrupt Samoa Joe. I thought this was a great way to kick off the show. We're off to a good start. Next up, we're backstage with SmackDown Live general manager Paige, who is confronted by Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. They ask her why she's making so many mistakes as of late, especially giving title shots to the wrong people. They bring up Asuka and, of course, her loss to Charlotte at WrestleMania 34. So Paige says, you know what? Give you a match tonight. She sets up Mandy Rose versus Asuka for later in the night. And then she walks off. Don't know why I'm doing that. You know what walking looks like. It's like climbing a ladder, but horizontal. She walks off and bumps into Renee Young, who asks her about Big Cass's words in the opening segment of the show. Did Paige actually say that? She says that, she didn't like Samoa Joe hijacking the show. He wasn't meant to be there at the beginning of SmackDown, but she does like the passion, specifically Big Cass's passion, and it's only fair for what was going to be a singles match later in the night to turn into a triple threat match. Big Cass, Daniel Bryan, Samoa Joe, main event of SmackDown Live. Too short to grade. Back to the ring, and it's time for Shinsuke Nakamura, the challenger, of course, for the WWE Championship at Money in the Bank, versus Ty Dillinger. And I thought this was good. I really actually enjoyed this because I thought it incorporated Ty's 10 gimmick quite cleverly into the match. It also gave Ty some decent TV time. Like, this could have easily been a squash match. Easily. I thought that's exactly what it was going to be. But the clever incorporation, like Ty trying to get to his feet and Nakamura counting him up before Ty comes out and does the 10 and then he's like, come on! It was a really fun match. And one that, I just wasn't expecting it to be fun, so I'm going to give this one a B+. Before I move on, I will say that I think I feel the same as the rest of you in that Ty is a sorely underutilized talent, but this week just didn't have a problem with it. People have to lose, obviously, it's wrestling, and this was a fine spot for 10, and he was super over with the crowd, who, by the way, were hot all night. Backstage again with WWE Champion AJ Styles, and he says that he saw what just happened in the ring with Nakamura and Ty, and that he thinks that Nakamura is underestimating him. That Nakamura is the better striker, the bigger man, but AJ, he's more clever. He's got more going on up there, except for the Flat Earth thing, which I won't bring up, just did. And then we see Rusev Day and Lana training for the dance-off, which is coming up next. Women's wrestling. So to the ring, and it is indeed time for that dance-off. I don't know what to say here. I'm going to look at the positives. It got Lana on TV without her having to wrestle. That's a positive. It's incorporating both of their gimmicks into a segment. They both dance. Crowd were hot again. This wasn't for me, as I say. I can't dance as well as Naomi. I can't dance as well as Lana. But, and you know what? I don't know as much about dancing as either woman. Or perhaps any of you watching. I don't know anything about dancing. So was the dancing good? Yeah. Good dancing. But I like wrestling. At least it ended in a scrap, right? It's a D. I don't really have anything else to say about this one. Dancing. Next up was The Bar and The Miz taking on The New Day, and this, for me, I just think it was fantastic. It was such a fun match. It was high energy throughout. There was so much that they managed to squeeze into quite a short amount of time. Like, it went quicker than I even thought it did. Because, it just flew by. It was just a really strong match. A few highlights. The Miz baiting Big E to the outside before being attacked by Sheamus. They pick him up and spike him into the barricade. Just proper spineless heel work. Continuing the Miz earning his heat and continuing the Miz being the best heel. Not just on the SmackDown roster, but probably in all of WWE right now. Ciampa is on NXT, but it's close. Another highlight, Xavier being tossed on top of the barricade, and then Kofi with just every week he's bringing out these unbelievable pay-per-view worthy spots. He runs up on top of the turnbuckle, a flawless dive to the outside, leaving Miz on the inside looking terrified, knowing that his plan had fallen through. Beautiful. And the final highlight was outside the ring, because I think the crowd here were great. I've already mentioned the crowd. They were hot all night, but especially here, they made the match feel even bigger than it was. This one gets an A from me because everyone played their role perfectly, and I just don't have anything negative to say about it. This was match of the night, midway through the show. With Daniel Bryan, Big Cass, Samoa Joe coming up, I preferred this one. It's an A. Backstage again, a quick, funny promo from the Good Brothers, Gallows and Anderson, who hyped their match at Money in the Bank for the SmackDown Tag titles. I would have preferred to see them in action, but hey, it's only a 2-hour show, it's not Raw, fortunately. They are interrupted via some kind of Max Headroom-esque signal intrusion by the Bludgeon Brothers. They hack into the TV, it pans over, and there on the TV, they deliver a promo. I don't really remember what it said, but I like them. They're very, very spooky. This is too short to grade again, but hey, give me a like for the Max Headroom reference. That was good. You're all too young for that, aren't you? Next up, it's Asuka versus Mandy Rose, and Carmela, SmackDown Live Women's Champion, has come to join us on commentary. Ooh. But as Asuka is on her way to that ring, she is attacked by that bastard, Sonya Deville, making Asuka now the underdog. Ooh. A decent enough match which allowed Mandy Rose to get in a bit more offense, to do a bit more than she would have done without the attack by Sonya Deville. I will say that I found Carmela particularly annoying on commentary, and not actually in a good way, if that makes sense. I just found her a bit repetitive, but nothing terrible. It gets a C from me. The match was nothing to write home about, but I did like the stare down in the ring at the end of the match between Asuka and Carmela. Backstage again with Charlotte and Becky Lynch arguing about who's going to win the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Becky was good here. She gave some funny lines. I think she's never been used as well as she could have been since she was called up to the main roster. Paige came and joined. She said tea time, which I thought was already a thing. And then backstage again with Andrade Cien Almas and Sin Cara, and Zelina Vega comes in. She was being a horrible dick. And then Almas also being a horrible dick, but in Spanish. Both of these, once again, too short to grade. Main event time, it is Daniel Bryan versus Big Cass versus Samoa Joe in a triple threat to see who qualifies for the Men's Money in the Bank ladder match, and they immediately, they being Daniel Bryan and Samoa Joe, go straight in for Big Cass. An alliance that obviously wasn't going to last throughout the match, but it's nice considering what happened earlier in the night that they did go straight for Cass. Some nice spots here with Big Cass lobbing Daniel Bryan over the announce table, something which, fair play to Big Cass, he does really, really well. Daniel Bryan running up and hitting the dropkick when Samoa Joe was on the top turnbuckle. Great stuff, just a fun match, and I really like the finish. Daniel Bryan passing out, not tapping out, passing out to the Coquina clutch, solidifying Daniel Bryan as the ultimate underdog babyface, and making it clear that passing out to a submission hold is a valid ending to a wrestling match. Screw you, Roman Reigns. Gonna give this match a B+. I know a lot of people are really upset about Bryan's placement on the card right now, and I agree. I would rather see Bryan feud with pretty much anyone as opposed to Big Cass. But on the plus side, I guess we've seen Daniel Bryan win the Money in the Bank match before. I'd like to see him go on to bigger things quite soon, so I'm hoping that they wrap the program with Cass up. But it's fine. Samoa Joe winning, I'm all for that. I can imagine Samoa Joe as being a fantastic Mr. Money in the Bank. Like, he's not the guy who is going to cash in on a down-and-out champion. He is the guy who is going to come to the ring on a completely fresh champion and still beat that fresh champion. And can you imagine that moment, how brilliant that will be? At the same time, I guess Cass is somebody... Sorry, not Cass. I guess Joe is somebody who doesn't need that, because he's like, I think that the Money in the Bank briefcase is something that should be given to somebody who could actually do with not just the rub, but that device, that plot mechanism of being able to cash in at any time. And Samoa Joe is such a terrific, compelling talker that I'm not sure he needs it, but I still do want to see that. Overall, another great night of wrestling. It's a B from me. I'm feeling sorry for Jack at this point, having to cover Raw every Tuesday morning while I get Smackdown, and it's just a fun 2 hours, isn't it? It flew by tonight. Flew by. Speaking of flying, get this t-shirt before it flies off the shelves. Cultaholic.com/shop. Great segue there. See you next week.